Hello, hello, welcome back. Bienvenue. Let's talk about Cinderella.
Their world was about to change.
I like fairy tales. I like the history. I like the mythology. I like the subtext. I like to take those fairy tale tropes and just flip them on their head. Completely subvert the expectation. Fairy tales aren't always this happily ever after that Disney has made them out to be. Some of them are extremely damaging and obviously completely unrealistic. I mean, come on, we use the phrase that you're living in a fairy tale for a reason. Cinderella is one of the oldest tales around, and I'm not kidding about that. Most of you are probably thinking, oh yeah, the Brothers Grimm, right? Well, no. No, Cinderella tales can be found all across the globe. I mean, we're talking Greek and Roman and Egyptian. And each is roughly the same. There's a girl reduced to degradation and squalor. She's forced into servitude. She proves her worth through her goodness, and then is rewarded for a better life. More importantly, the wicked are punished, which is something that a lot of modern retellings seem to forget, that this story is about justice. The earliest telling of a Cinderella story can actually be found in Chinese mythology. We're talking about 9th century. It's one of those really weird facts that I came across when I was working on my 4th year thesis. The tale itself is a fun one. I mean, it involves making friends with a fish, stepmother killing the fish, wishing on bones, and a man in the sky. I mean, it's a little all over the place. And I know that it doesn't really resemble a lot of the current reiterations of the story. I mean, other than, a noble woman's fall into poverty, the evil stepmother, a grand festival, and a lost shoe. It's only fitting that Cinderella be adapted for a more modern audience, as it has been for every culture and society that has retold it. Cinderella is just one of those classic stories, one of those stories that's been told again and again and again, and I'm starting to wonder if maybe we actually don't need this to be retold at all. I mean, how many versions do we have at this point? Okay, so Cinderella got a makeover again, but this modern retelling is a little less fairy tale romance and more about becoming a career woman. They really wanted to reshape Cinderella into a 3-dimensional character that wasn't defined by love. And yet they kind of failed. They wanted to reinvent her, which I'm actually all for. I mean, that's exactly what fairy tales were created to do. Remember what I said earlier about subverting tropes and expectations? Except they seem to have completely misunderstood who and what the character of Cinderella is. Cinderella stars Camila Cabello as Ella, or, nicknamed Cinderella as usual. She's a woman who is in pursuit of a dream, which is actually extremely awesome. She has goals, she has aspirations. There is conflict with the world itself as well as her stepmother. Her dream is literally bigger than the world that she lives in, so she needs to be part of the change to make it happen. That's great, I love that idea. Cinderella is the perfect vessel to discuss themes of gender and class. These tales have been used for social criticisms for ages. They are tools to teach lessons, morals, but also entertain. Honestly, adapting to the needs of society is something that fairy tales have always done. But the way this modern adaptation does it is so heavy-handed. It's like we're being clubbed over the head with the moral of the story 10 times a scene. The thing is, lately fairy tales seem to be mistaken for stories about how a girl's most important duty in life is to find love and get married. And we seem to need to make increasingly more woke fairy tales to combat it. I mean, this version of Cinderella even has an extremely humorous rendition of Madonna's Material Girl. But at the same time, misses the point completely. See, Prince Charming isn't the goal. He never was. Cinderella is about kindness. Be a good person, be kind, and you will go far in life. I mean, cruelty will just get you nowhere. The Prince Charming is just a coincidental reward. Cinderella is in no way a weak character. She is strong in the face of adversity. She is defiant. So this creation of the oddball girl that stands out as an individual, that doesn't quite fit in, well, it isn't as rebellious as they probably thought. The main conflict becomes Ella choosing between Robert and a career, creating a career. It's no longer about the cruelty that she suffers at the hands of her stepmother. It's no longer about justice or kindness. They stripped away all of the real stakes of poverty and cruelty and being trapped, and they completely replaced the fairy tale romance aspect with this idea of chasing a career. To make Ella this girl boss that doesn't swoon at the sight of a cute boy. We have this conservative society that places a lesser value on women. Like, they can't run a business. They need to find a man and marry well. And then they'll be at home and they need to take care of the kids and they need to cook and they need to clean. Your life is lived through the man in your life. Whether you're a commoner or nobility or even the queen. This Cinderella is about women finding their place in a man's world. It's admirable, but it's kind of meh. I appreciate the feminist message of this film. I appreciate wanting to teach young women and girls that they are more than the worth men place on them. A good partner will encourage you. You shouldn't have to sacrifice your dreams for somebody else's. Because guess what? You can do it all. We need to stop teaching women that in order to have a career, they can't have a love life. It's just not true. To be a feminist, you don't need to choose to be alone. Camila Cabello and Nicholas Galitzine did phenomenally vocally, and they even had decent chemistry on screen, but the characters themselves were kind of eh. And Pierce Brosnan, now he's not somebody that I usually think about comedy for, but when he had a chance on screen, well, he really brought it. Billy Porter, of course, was an absolute riot, but kind of wasted. Which, so was Minnie Driver. They were completely underutilized. I mean, the Queen herself could have been more compelling if they used her to her full potential. I mean, the resolution to the entire conflict of the film was sort of lackluster and unearned. And the whole giving the stepmother a sympathetic background is just odd. It's not good and it's not bad, it's just odd. Because we have her flip-flopping emotionally when it comes to her treatment of Ella. Like, she cares, but then she's also spiteful and vicious. My biggest gripe with the film might actually be with the character of Princess Gwen. And let me tell you that I saw the ending of the movie coming from within the first 10 minutes. It was obvious what would happen between the prince and his sister. What would happen between Cinderella and the prince. And even between the king and his wife. Princess Gwen shows so much potential in the beginning, but she has no actual character development. She has no character arc to justify the end. And Prince Robert's decision literally has no impact on the plot. The king and the kingdom aren't forced to wrestle with this new future coming at them. The pieces just so easily fall into place. It's like magic. We have an extreme example of a society that deals with the same struggles and issues that we do today, except we pretend that we don't. It's a past that's not all too distant, but is completely course-corrected because the king has a change of heart. The prince made a choice and the king went, yeah, okay. And I'm just not buying it. The major failing of this movie was definitely in the writing. The plot and story were just weak and oversimplified. When they tried to make the characters less static, they took away traits that made them rounded. It's still fun though, and the music and songs were great, though some of the choices were probably a little shallow. I mean, did we really need another white boy rendition of Somebody to Love? What I find interesting is that American audiences always think of Cinderella as this rags to riches story. But it's not. Actually, it never was. Cinderella was always about reclaiming a rightful place. Cinderella was always nobility or already rich. It's in more modern adaptations with the inclusion of a fairy godmother or helpful animals that Cinderella kind of loses all her own capabilities. She no longer has to be clever. She no longer has to rely on her own abilities. This Cinderella did have goals and wants and a real drive, but she still got that magical fix that means she didn't really have to do it herself. Okay, I think I'm rambling at this point, so let's just sum up. I appreciate the I choose me sentiment, because your destiny belongs to no one but you. You are not meant to be a side character plopped into somebody else's story. But this completely missed the mark on the essence of Cinderella. And while it was super imaginative and quirky, it definitely didn't understand the concept of subtext. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel.
Can't leave actors alone in a basement without attention, they'll die!